Today, I'm going to share with you 12 practices that will help you know, love, and trust yourself. You can start practicing them today, and I have a few reflection prompts that I'm going to offer you at the end because if we only hear things and we don't absorb it or apply it or make it personal to ourselves, then we lose it. We don't actually let it take root in our lives and create the positive change that I would hope for you to receive from this episode. So to get started, I want you to know, love, and trust yourself. This is what I want. This is my main vision for my work, for how to use my gifting in the world and help build a world that I want to live in. And in part only, what that means is I want you to actually get to know yourself. Not only your personality and different traits that have brought you to this point in time, but I want you to actually get to know your true self, your wise, authentic, healthy self, and begin to lead from that place more and more of the time. I want you to learn how to be on your own side, always, no matter what that means, why it matters so deeply, and how this will create incredible change in your life. I want you to practice a kinder way of being in your body and life, and that includes in your relationships, like learning how to name and communicate and honor healthy boundaries, for example. But in this place, what happens is you become much more awake to all the sneaky ways that perfectionism and fear hold you back or get you to dim your light or keep you quiet or keep you living in a past version of yourself, holding you back from the fullness of like joy, for example. And with practice, I want you to learn how to really be your true self in every area of life. This has to start slow and steady. Everything starts slow and steady, but in order to be our true selves in every area of our life, this requires like a real depth of commitment to practicing and reinforcing new stories, new patterns in our lives so that we feel safe enough to be our true selves in every area of life. So, this is really my heart for you. And today I want to share 12 practices that can help you without too much other information or knowledge or, other resources that I think you could really start applying any one of these 12 things today, no matter where you are in your life. And yeah, so let's just dive in. All right. So the first practice is learning how to pause between impulse and response. This is a huge one. This is one of the most empowering things you can do, you can ever learn how to do. And it's basically just before you react, before you act on your initial urge or impulse or automatic assumption, that you pause. You create a little bit of space in which wisdom can arise. One benefit of this is that it creates a bit of space between you and the feeling you're experiencing or the first thought you're having. It also creates a bit of space between you and the other person. And and that in that space, we're able to sort of almost step back a little bit from the urgency and that those big feelings or even that overwhelming sense of like, in some cases like injustice or they're being mean or whatever. And it just helps us step back and pause long enough to see what else could be true, what else is possible, or who do I choose to be in this moment. This is where you practice noticing what is driving your life, and then where you get to choose who and how you want to be moving forward. The second practice is a weekly friend date. This is where you spend quality time with yourself without noise or distraction. And most people I know are not doing this. This is not where we listen to podcast episodes or read books or have friend chats or any of the above, the intention with this weekly friend date is actually to get to know yourself better. So you might notice in this place what's happening internally, like what sensations are present in your body, what emotions are coming up, what thoughts are spinning. It could be where you do some visioning work or just dream and plan. It could be where you get to know your likes and dislikes. Maybe you actually take yourself out on little mini dates in your local area. Maybe you do some journaling and use guided prompts to help you reflect or listen inward. And this is also where a couple other key things that are a little bit more like in depth and they will require more learning or practice. One is where you can really learn how to recognize your inner voice and hone that, strengthen it. And that includes recognizing like what is the difference between intuition and fear? Or how can I distinguish between pressure, like old conditioning or wounding or external pressure, versus true longing or desire, for example? And then the final part of this that I want to touch on is where I get the most like powerful impact is that in doing some internal parts work where I actually have a weekly date with some of my parts. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you want to learn more, you could read the book No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. The third practice that you could begin today, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter who you are, is to build self-trust slow and steady. Now, forging deep self-trust takes time. It's just like building any healthy quality relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to essentially like earn that self-trust. And part of the way that we earn that is by learning how to hear that inner voice and responding to what we hear. Because every time we override our inner signals, like for example, if somebody asks us to do something and inside we're hearing no, but we say yes because we don't want to make people unhappy with us or we don't want them to judge us, we are eroding self-trust. So we can start this in low risk ways. And actually, that is how I recommend that we start. So, for example, you don't start in the most extreme, scary ways. You start by listening to your body when it needs to go to the bathroom, when it needs to go to bed early, when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you want a hug. You actually hear these cues, these basic, fundamental human cues, and you respond to them. You give yourself what you need. You nourish yourself. You fill yourself up. It could mean noticing where you've tipped into restriction in your life, or a very regimented, rigid way of being, whether that's with your food, whether that's with certain boundaries, and where you're tipping into judgment again, where something is in general, like, or in theory, it's a good idea, but you've tipped back into sort of rigidity or perfectionist behavior. I've been there many times. It can mean just voicing your opinion with people in your inner circle, people that you are safe with. You know that you are safe with them. So instead of just deferring always to what other people want, you offer an opinion. What movie do you want to watch? What do you want to eat for supper? Where would you like to go for supper? It can, a little riskier, can be like, let's say you're in a restaurant and you get the wrong food. Instead of just eating it anyway, you could say, hey, actually, what I ordered is X. If something's burnt, you could speak up. This is actually really stretchy for some people. So again, it's like it's medium risk in some ways for some people. This another way of practicing building your self-trust starting today is stop saying yes when you mean no. You don't even have to justify. Even at first, what you might want to do is just give yourself a phrase that you can use in the moment, like, let me check my calendar and get back to you. So that in the moment, when you have that impulse or urge to say yes or to people please or to jump in and fix for other people, that you have that ability to pause, hearkening back to practice number one, and give yourself some space for that wisdom to arise. And another critical way that you can practice building self-trust starting today is just weaving non-negotiable rest into your life. A little bit of rest every day, a little bit of rest each week, and just start practicing honoring the boundary around that, considering it sacred space, and letting yourself rest and restore. Practice number four, and this is such an important one, and I think one that people devalue and skip over a lot of the time, is simply receiving the gift of each and every day. So this day is your real life. Whatever's happening, however you're feeling, this is your real life. This is where you practice. This is where you have power of choice. This day is a gift. Now, I'm not saying it feels like a gift, but it has been. Here you are, you've received the gift of this day, or you've received this day, if you want to just remove that word gift altogether. For example, if you're in a really in deep pain, probably doesn't feel like a gift. I'm not saying, by the way, the circumstance is a gift or that you have to want or like the circumstance. I'm just saying that here you are alive in this day, and none of us have a guarantee of tomorrow. We don't know what is coming around the bend. So this is the day where we need to live fully awake and present. Um, a common thing that I hear in my work is around like people deferring happiness or well-being, or saying things like, I'll be happy when, or I'll approve of myself when, or even if they don't say that out loud, they think things like, well, basically I can't approve of myself until I lose 50 pounds, get out of debt, stop doing XYZ, like whatever. We have these conditions around when we deserve to value ourselves, when we're good enough, when we are allowed to actually just feel okay in our bodies and lives, when we're allowed to rest and let go of striving, even temporarily. If you're a midlife woman, chances are you can relate to this, and it's showing up in many different ways in your life. The way that you can begin practicing is I'm going to offer you, I don't know how many, six-ish or something. And all of these are evidence-based in some way. So some of them are known to increase dopamine in the brain or other, hormones of well-being and happiness. Some of them increase life satisfaction and happiness, etc. But I'm just going to throw them at you. You've probably heard of all or most of them. One of the most powerful ways we can receive the gift of each day is beginning and ending our days with gratitude. Just three simple things in your brain, for example. Start with one, if that's what it takes. And also, even if the only thing you can think of is, I'm grateful for my dog, and you say the same thing every day, that counts. Because one day you'll be able to see more to be grateful for. Savor pleasant experiences, even for 30 seconds. So when you enjoy something, when you have this momentary like glimpse of well-being, pause and just let it soak in for even 30 seconds. I love my morning routines and my morning coffee. And when I'm sitting in my, cozy chair with, my pen and planner and my coffee, and I look outside at my ornamental apple tree, and my cat is like taking up all my, the rest of my lap and body space. I just pause and soak it in. And I think, oh, I built this life. Like this simple experience is actually like an incredible privilege. And it brings me so much pleasure to be able to have this gift in my life, and I want to really receive it. Noticing awe, like when you're in nature, like for me, it's on my nature walks or my regular walks through Wooded Trail. When I go to the mountains, that sense of awe that I experience, like for me, when the wind rushes through the trees, it kind of sounds like the ocean to me. I just try to like absorb that. It just creates this sense of awe, especially like the mountains and the water or the ocean, and just receive that, let it absorb. Scan for beauty in your everyday. In my seasonal mindfulness journals, I talk about mining for the beauty and wisdom in every single day, even in the hardest season. And I say that confidently because I've lived and breathed it through the hardest season of my life. Create a joy list or a happy things list. Just take notice of the things that bring up joy for you. One, just because the noticing in and of itself increases your happiness, but also because then you have a record. And also, you can look back and see, what do I want to weave more of into my life moving forward? Really taste your food, linger in a hug, and be fully present in your body and life. Okay, practice number 5 is really pay attention to how you talk to and about yourself. I was I mentioned this again in the Brave and Beautiful community this call, and it's not new. I talk about it all the time in my work, but what I've what I'm really trying to do here is always listen and really pay attention and iterate and get better and clearer at what are the most important things that I need to offer my clients and community members so that they come to that place of knowing, loving, trusting themselves, or being on their own side, or befriending themselves even more quickly. I'm not saying that faster is better, but I'm saying that I want to be so good at getting you the results that you want. I want to improve in my skill. I want to hone it. I do want, to be honest, like I've gone through so much hard work, and I do believe that I shortcut the journey for you, that I have assimilated, like lived and learned and practiced and connected dots and sifted and done so much work so that you don't have to, so that I can like pull together from my experience and say, here are the most important things to apply yourself to that I believe will get you the powerful results that you're looking for. Okay. And this is one of them. And this is one of those red flags or the most significant cues in your life that will tell you about how your current level of friendship with yourself. And that is, how do you talk to yourself or about yourself? Now, you've probably heard me say this, that I have a no bullying policy in my life that I started almost 21 years ago now, when my third child was a brand new baby. And that was that was probably one of the smartest, kindest things that I ever did for myself in my life, in my almost 55 years. A no bullying policy matters. No bullying from other people, but no bullying from yourself. So only kind and affirming self-talk, even when you make a mistake, even on your hardest day. And you just start practicing wherever you are today. It also includes noticing how you devalue yourself in conversation or how you make jokes at your own expense. How you say things that they're not sitting right anymore, and noticing, like I shared this like maybe in the past year for myself, where I was still catching myself saying sometimes like laughingly, like, oh, I'm lazy. And then I realized, like, what's not funny about that is that that's actually rooted in an old belief that harmed me. When I didn't know myself and I was struggling with severe anxiety, I was a highly sensitive human. I thought, I'm bad, wrong, and broken. I didn't understand. Even the anxiety, I didn't even know that I was living with severe anxiety because it was my norm from such a young age. So I, my capacity seemed so much more limited than many other people's. And so that language, that story around I'm lazy, it comes from that old harmful place. And I realized in terms of like taking radical ownership for who and how I'm being in my life, that story is not allowed anymore. It's so not true. I'm actually an incredibly hard worker. I have shown up through such hard things. Um, and and even like learning how to rest, I've I've worked my butt off to learn how to truly rest. So yeah, so just pay attention to this, and maybe if you only can do one of these, because really I'm gonna after you hear the whole list, I'm gonna invite you to think about one or two that you want to practice. And this is probably one of the best starting places for anybody listening. Pay attention to how you talk to and about yourself. So lift yourself up, cheer yourself onward like you would a good friend. Be proud of yourself and remember that you don't have to wait for some day when you're like perfect and you have it all together, which of course is not going to happen, to deserve kindness. Okay. You actually don't have to deserve kindness. You practice kindness, and that helps you be who you really want to be in the world. Number six is build a healthy and wise support system. Now, joy grows in community. The research abounds about the health benefits and benefits to longevity that come from community, but we do need to be careful about who is in our inner circle because we become like the people we spend the most time with. Health habits can be tracked. Like you can see, research talks about how, if your partner drinks, you're X number percent more likely to become a drinker. If your best friend exercises, you're so much more likely to exercise as well. So we pick up the habits of the people around us. So, for example, there was a time in my life where I was in a space where I didn't like this ever, but there was like a gossipy type behavior that I despised. And there was a point where I was like, I'm leaving this space. This is not who I want to be. And I recognize that I I would rather be alone than be immersed in spaces where the patterns of thought or behavior or the level of EQ, emotional intelligence, for example, are not at all reflective of or supportive of who I really want to be in the world. Do you need to fill in gaps in your support system? Like find creative ways to build community in some new ways? Do you need to filter out some relationships? Do you need to just practice making more bids for connection? Do you need to practice not only asking for support, but actually receiving it, letting people actually do things? For me, this is actually feels exciting for me, and I've gone through this in lots of different ways. Like I shared recently in my B&B community that the very first time I ever actually asked for and received support, I was close to 40. I'm not sure right now what exact age, but it was very close to 40. And it was just at this point where it was like a tipping point, and I was like, I need help. And I hired my first therapist, and that was such an act of self-compassion for myself. Recently, I hired a new team member that I'm so delighted about, one of my best friends, and she is just brilliant and amazing and so skilled in ways that in areas I'm not. And so we can really like operate in our gifting. And yeah, I'm just like really grateful. But I have to back off. right? I have to give her tasks and let her do them and trust her to do them. And so I know that this is going to be a growth edge for me in this practice of truly receiving this type of support in my business so that I can focus on the things that, delight me and fill me up and that I do best. All right, so think about your healthy support system. The next practice is practice all or something or more than zero. There is not one human who comes to my work that doesn't need this practice. I mean, obviously you need all of them because that's why I'm offering them to you. But like and maybe it's me who draws people in who, like me, have struggled hard with perfectionism in one way or another. And just a little side note, perfectionism doesn't mean that you achieve perfection or even desire perfection in every area of your life, or that you micromanage every area of life or whatever. It actually shows up in all sorts of ways. And one person can look really different from the other on the external perspective. So, but this sort of raising the bar on yourself all the time, being really hard on yourself, maybe comparing yourself and always feeling like you're falling short, forgetting or just not even thinking about celebrating your progress because you're already jumping into, okay, but what do I have to do next? Living always looking forward where we're just seeing like the distance between where we are and where we want to go and not practicing looking back to witness and celebrate our progress. Things like that. Where I see this in practical ways a lot is people quitting before they even really get started. So trying something for 2 days and then because you can't do it quote unquote perfectly, you quit. That's it. I can't even do it. So maybe not putting your work in the world, not even trying something new. In my former self life, I've shared before that in university, my perfectionism anxiety was so bad that there were times that I would take a zero on something rather than show up and try if I felt like I hadn't studied enough or my anxiety had just like kept me from writing until the last second, so I didn't feel good about my work. I would take a zero, even though chances are I would never fail, like just going to be honest, but getting a 50, a 60, a 70, sometimes even like an 80, it was so horrifying and painful for me. I really had to learn. My business has been one of the biggest teachers of all for me in this. Like I was learning before, but this has really stretched me in this area to put things out into the world imperfectly and just keep practicing and iterating. And, that the sky is not going to fall. Um, I believe, though, that anything that truly matters to you is worth doing for 3 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, or doing imperfectly. So this could be like if you want to move your body, moving for 10 minutes counts. If you want to writing for 20 minutes in the margins of your life counts. Practicing a little bit, practicing imperfectly, like this skill. I'm just thinking right now, like maybe this is my number two on this list that I think could be the biggest mover and shaker for you today. If you want my advice about where to start practicing, maybe those two, you pay attention to your how you talk to and about yourself, and then start practicing all or something instead of all or nothing, or what I call more than zero, and just see what happens. By the way, both of these practices, they're going to really shine a spotlight on all the ways that you are hard on yourself and unkind to yourself. And we do need that. We have to see something. We have to see the truth of something so that we can choose or develop a new pattern. All right. Number 8 is step into the unknown. Okay. Now, this one, I do believe you can practice this today. There's something in your life where you can practice this. What this means is that It's tied to more than zero, the one that we just talked about, but it is a little different. And this is where we really have to learn to stop waiting. If we have a dream or a longing or a goal or a desire, that we stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Um, okay, and I'm not even going to finish that sentence. I'm just going to say so, and this isn't a judgment, but it is an observation. And I do invite you to notice where this is true for you. Even in my work, where so many people will say, well, I know I need this. And they know that their life is not what they want it to be. And even that life is so much harder and it would be so much easier if they could actually learn how to, for example, like practice self-compassion or be on their own side. But they say, well, I'm going to wait until summer, or I'm going to wait until kids go back to university, or I'm going to wait until I retire. So that is another way of deferring our happiness or well-being, thinking that one day life is going to slow down and feel simpler and easier, and then I will value myself. And I actually believe that that just reinforces that same old pattern that brought you here, and that maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time when there's something in us that's calling us forward, and I think of this as it's calling us into greater freedom, we don't wait. We say yes now. We step into the light that we have. Why would you wait? Why would you, if freedom or joy were calling you, why would you say, not now, joy, 3 years from now when X, right? Not today. How about we start January 1st? I don't think he would do that if you could see them, right? If you could really envision yourself, let yourself imagine yourself walking in freedom, wholeness, and joy. Why would you defer that? You wouldn't. So it's like it's because it's intangible that we put it off. Anyway, I think that's a really big mistake, and I think all of us can benefit from just knowing, watching, sorry, where this is showing up in our lives. So we have to learn how to be in discomfort if we want to truly know, love, and trust ourselves, and if we want soul honoring lives, or if we want to experience joyful living in every season, or if we want to really experience what it means to like feel this internal sense of freedom, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual freedom. There is discomfort involved. Vulnerability and discomfort just come hand in hand with growth and becoming. You can't have one without the other. So part of this is recognizing that feeling uncomfortable is not the same as being unsafe. It feels unsafe in our bodies when we're not used to this. So you could just begin noticing, saying, am I feeling uncomfortable or am I feeling unsafe? Or, and just sort of like sifting through this. So we need to take that first step. When there's something calling us forward, something we long for, something we want, we have to stop waiting for the full path, perfect conditions, or for us to feel completely ready. You're not going to feel completely ready. You're not, ever. So you just have to step out into that little bit of light that you have and trust that the rest of the path will unfold as you need it to, step by step. Number 9 is water what you want to grow, not what you don't want. So this is where we need to really be accountable for where we're putting our focus, where we're putting our attention. What are we watering and fertilizing in our life? And so By the way, I'm always practicing all the things, and this is no exception. And in my planner right now, there's something specific where one of my boundaries that I'm working on right now for myself is in this area. I'm not going to talk about it because it touches on something personal or relating to somebody else. Where I noticed my fearful, worrying thoughts, I was voicing those. I was focusing on those. So I'm like, this is what I'm watering. And so I'm really practicing taking responsibility for this in my life and instead watering through my thoughts and my words, something that is life-giving and hopeful in this particular area of my life. So if you're always talking about what's wrong, or you get together for coffee and you guys focus on all the things that are not good in your life, all the bitching and complaining and worrying and judging and whatever, that's what you're watering. And that doesn't mean we don't give each other space to talk about hard things, but we don't set up camp there. We have to take responsibility for this. So, and unless you don't want something different, but if you do want something different, then you need to pay attention to what are you watering in your life? What are you giving life to? Where are your resources going? Where is your attention going? What are your words watering? And then also remember, because I think this is helpful like, this is helpful in many ways, but like, if you are a small business owner and income is low, fear could just incapacitate you. But instead, you need to just keep planting seeds. Like, focus on what do you already know to do, and just keep doing the next right thing and the next right thing, because the what you plant and water today grows or bears fruit down the road, in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. The same is true when you're growing a relationship with yourself, by the way. In the beginning, it feels like impossible. Nothing's going to change. You're going to have to work really hard at just staying in a place of even just a little bit of trust to keep to practicing even these things that I'm offering you. But remember that just you're planting and watering seeds. You can't see the growth yet, but you will. In 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, you are going to see these seeds sprout and then grow and then bear fruit. Okay, if you don't quit. Release and receive. So, in order to grow and evolve, you have to let go of old stories, old patterns, even old versions of you. And I think I talked about this before when I in an episode about rebranding middle age even, but like you can't grow forward if you are living one foot in the past. So and that's a big deep conversation, but also you can start today. So even just noticing like what have you outgrown? Or are you giving yourself permission to continue to grow and evolve? And that could include changing your mind. Sometimes it can look radically different. Like who you are today could look radically different from who you used to be. And I feel that way. Like my past version, when I was like nesting and homeschooling and grinding flour and that season of my life that I was so immersed in, I loved it. That is exactly what I wanted. I am not there. That was beautiful. I am grateful for that season. I learned so much, and that was a gift. And also, there's nothing in me that would want to go back or even be able to do that again. Have changed and grown. I am in a new season. I have new dreams. I have new ways of being in the world. But if I didn't release that, if I didn't allow myself like to loosen my grip on that season, and I was trying to kind of like live in there and holding tight to that because maybe I don't believe that there is good stuff ahead or whatever, I am holding myself back. I am keeping myself actually like stagnant. So where do you need to loosen your grip? Where do you need to clear out the clutter? That could include closets, habits, things on your calendar, um, relationships. So just pay attention to if you want to receive something new, you have to release what was. We're winding down. So let's talk about reciprocity. Now, this is where you'll have heard me talk about this a lot. Basically, a couple things. One, you have to pour in to be able to pour out. So if you are depleted, you will not be able to serve your family in a very like healthy and resourced way. If you want to do your best work, you need to be taking care of yourself. And if, okay, that shows up in so many ways. So one way that you can begin to practice is where do you keep trying to give from an empty cup? Where are you always taking care of others and neglecting your own basic needs? Or even if you've moved beyond basic needs and that's you're solid in that, could you allow yourself a bit more spaciousness for the things that actually light you up and fill you up? And but this is also where you could notice that so the belief that I hold to be true is that we all have an impact always, conscious of it or not. You've heard me talk about that before. What is your spillover effect right now? Do you do you think that your current impact in your family and friend group and then in, the world around you, is it what you want it to be? Is it life-giving? Is it healthy? Is it helping to build a world you want to live in? Do you vote for the world you want to live in? Do you spend your dollars in a way that votes for the world you want to live in? I'm not talking about perfection because it's complex and there's so many, messy parts of this. So we can look at our spillover effect, and it could be as simple as when you go to the grocery store, how do you talk to the person putting your groceries through? In a restaurant, how do you talk to the waiter? How do you treat them? Like it's like how we treat people because that is an expression of what we believe in. It could be watching your dynamics at home that maybe they're not values aligned right now. And that's not an opportunity to judge and beat yourself up, but it is an opportunity to be accountable, take responsibility for actually what I want is this. I'm thinking back again to younger years when I've shared on previous episodes when I was homeschooling and really self-critical and regimented and really kind of worried about like I did feel like I had to prove myself to be honest because people were very judgy. My background is education, my husband is a teacher and people have all sorts of thoughts and feelings about homeschoolers and and so I did feel that pressure and that kind of brought up my perfectionism even louder. But then I had this sort of waking up experience where I realized this is what I wanted, but the outcome is not what I wanted. So my children were upset, or I was barking orders, or whatever. And I'm like, that is not the home I wanted. So I switched my approach to how do I want my children to feel in their home and in relationship to learning. And then that shifted how I showed up to the work. So you could begin practicing by noticing that. Like, how could I just change how I'm approaching something in order to feel a certain way in my body and life, for example? But remember that we're all interconnected and there is no way to separate that. So I don't care if you live in the woods, there's very few people in the world that can remove themselves and isolate themselves so completely that they're actually having no impact on other human beings. But we're also still in relationship with the land around us and all of that. So just notice. If you're not a people-y person, maybe that's where you want to notice this idea of reciprocity is, are you helping to build a world you want to live in? And look at the give and take nature of the relationships in your life, whether that's the relationship with the land around you, the food that grows in your environment, whatever. Okay, finally, set goals, make plans, dream forward. And there is like I only I have notes for you, by the way. I forgot to say this. You don't have to like scramble to take notes. I have a resource for you. You can just print this out yourself, and I've got those reflection questions on that resource for you as well. So there is a lot of research around purpose, around, happiness and life satisfaction, and the biggest contributing factors, around joyful aging and around like goal setting. And I've done workshops about all of these, and I've spent years like reading and learning and connecting dots. And all of these things have a lot of overlap. They're connected. So if we looked at resilience, hope, people who have a strong sense of meaning or purpose in their lives, those who have, age joyfully or, live longer, etc. Some of the common factors are that people who have clearly defined goals or a vision, and both of those contribute to sense of purpose and can be an expression of sense of purpose. They are happier, more satisfied with their lives, and they tend to live longer. And there's other health benefits. So I know not everybody's a goal-oriented person, but we need a sense of where we're heading and who we're becoming, in so that it can call us forward. And so that in our hardest moment, we look up and we say, oh yeah, that's why I'm practicing this thing. That's why I'm committed to this practice, because that's what I want. That's where I'm going. It can be, and your why could be that I want to break dysfunctional patterns in my family of origin, or I want this generational thing to end with me and my children. It could be something like that. It could be something about using your gifting. It could be about just your belief in like in an artistry and creativity and the joy that it brings other people when you storytell or use your music or share your art or whatever. Like it could be anything at all. Purpose is actually not complex like people think, but one of the ways that we just live this is that you keep having goals, making plans, dreaming forward. It improves your health and happiness, and there is a contribution to the world around you. But again, if we even just think about what happens when you feel happier or healthier, what happens when you feel like at home in your body and your life? What happens when you wake up every day and there's something that feel like with a smile on your face or a sense of like purpose? Your spillover effect is also like healthier, and the positive impact is stronger. Um, so so yeah, it's as basic as that. Keep dreaming, keep setting goals, keep making plans, have things to look forward to and to work towards. Track your progress. Look back and witness your progress and celebrate it and be proud of yourself. And one thing that I offer you is every day you could ask, am I being the person who can create and receive what I truly desire? And that honestly, that calls us back into like that radical ownership for our lives or back into agency. Am I being the person today? Today, am I being the person who can or is creating and receiving the life I truly desire? And what that will do is reveal any place that we're not in agency or we're not being that person. So just a quick little example is Like most of my life, I really believed like I had these feelings and beliefs around I shouldn't want more than just barely enough. And and it anyway, I don't want to go too deep into that. It's a great conversation, but it's really in my 50s where I've really challenged that, the roots of that, gone into the roots of that, like where does that come from? And is this true for me? And why? And really done some healing work to release these old stories and bring in overseed some new stories. And and why am I telling you this? Oh yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed is that if I say, like, if I have a strong vision for what I want and who I want to be, but it requires of me to open myself up to receiving the good things. Like, for example, one really just beautiful, joyful thing in my that I desire is travel. Like, I have a strong hunger to see and taste more of the world while I have, this life to live. And and I think that's part of my makeup. And I think that me seeing and tasting that I absorb that and then I bring it into my work and serve others with it also. But also, I'm allowed to just receive it because it's wonderful and delightful and it creates and it's awe-inspiring. But I have to be somebody who can receive that. So, what would block me from receiving? Maybe feelings of guilt and selfishness, maybe a habit that keeps me overspending, buying stuff online instead of saving that money for travel. So this is an invitation to notice, am I open to receiving what I say I want? What is blocking me from receiving that? And then keep just plodding forward towards your dreams, towards your goals, towards the life that you truly want and towards the person that you really want to be in the world. Oof. Okay. I know that was a lot, but I hope that you feel really inspired and energized by this list. Now, again, I do think that if you wanted, you could like print this list out and say, okay, I'm going to work on these 12 things over the next year. Let's see what happens. But you have to start smaller than that. So choose one or two things where areas to practice in the next few months. Notice how that goes. Um, and and then yeah, and just the here are the reflection questions. But again, if you want to work through this in a more in-depth way, come get the resource. It's free. I would love for you to have it. So I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, what could change in my relationship with myself in the next 3, 6, or 12 months if I developed these 12 practices slow and steady? What would I feel most proud of or grateful for? The second question, what could change in my life in the next 3, 6, or 12 months if I committed to learning and growing in these 12 practices? What are a couple specific results I might experience? The third question is the 1 to 3 practices I'd most love to grow in over the coming months are, and then the specific situations or ways that I will begin to practice are. The more specificity brings clarity, clarity brings confidence. Okay, so the more specific and granular we get, the clearer we are and feel, and then our confidence grows. And finally, and importantly, what inner or outer resistance or obstacles will make it harder for me to follow through on my desire to practice? How can I reduce friction to make it simpler and easier on myself? Okay, that's really an important step. All right, I'm going to wrap up there. Come get the resource, and I would love to hear what you want to practice, what comes up for you in this list. Yeah, let me know. All right. But one way or another, I really hope that it helps you. I believe it will if you practice. It will help you know, love, and trust yourself more deeply. All right. Goodbye. Until next time.